Welcome everyone, I'm Archit Seshadri. Thanks so much for watching WION. This is World is One News. Let's take a look at the top stories making headlines here in South Asia and around the world. A deadly U.S. shooting, 5 people killed and dozens others hurt. Police are now looking for the motive. Violence against women continues in India. Another case of molestation in the city of Bengaluru. Next to Pakistan, where the country is set to wind up its special military courts 2 years after they were set up for a speedy trial for hardcore militants after the deadly Peshawar attacks. Staying in South Asia, fresh clashes emerge over the Sri Lankan government's deal with China over the Hambantota port. The U.S. intelligence report shows that Russian President Vladimir Putin personally ordered a campaign to help Donald Trump win the U.S. elections. Penalized for missing sales targets, Apple CEO Tim Cook's pay is cut by 15%, the first sales slump of Apple products in 15 years. Welcome everyone, those stories shortly, but first we start in Pakistan, where the military courts that were set up 2 years ago after the deadly Peshawar school attacks have now been wound up. No formal announcement was made either by the government or the military, but reports from Islamabad say a sunset clause inserted into the act specified 2 years for such courts. The courts were set up back in December of 2014 to try terror acts, and since then have sentenced 161 terrorists to death. However, only 12 so far have been executed, while the 116 others have received other sentences, mostly life in prison. All the terrorism cases will now be tried in the already existing anti-terrorism courts. Let's now go to our Pakistan Bureau Chief, Taha Siddiqui, joining us via phone. Taha, thank you so much for joining us. The courts were established through a constitutional amendment after that deadly attack, but they were to be abolished under the terms, which is now complete. Is it surprising that there was no official word that has come out?
Well, basically, the Interior Minister yesterday did release a statement, and he said that there will be no extension given to these courts because of the fact that there was, today, Saturday, was the day when it was supposed to, they were supposed to end, and so the Interior Ministry did release a statement saying that we will not be extending them, and now from now on, all terrorism cases will be forwarded to the anti-terrorism court as it used to be 2 years ago.
All right, Taha, when the move came about, it was quite popular. Give us a sense of the trials that the courts were able to carry out during this time frame.
Well, there were lots of basically terrorism cases that were tried, but very little information was given, and most of human rights activists and observers have said that there was no transparency in these courts, and basically, at most, one would get even the press was not allowed to follow the proceedings. There was no independent assessment of how the proceedings were carried out, who were the judges, what evidence was presented, and because of which, many a times the verdicts that were handed out by the military courts were challenged in normal courts, but then they were usually dismissed because the normal courts or the Supreme Court said that they did not have jurisdiction, and the military courts had a legal cover with regards to the constitutional amendment. But most of the time, journalists would just basically get a press statement from the military saying that so-and-so person was tried for so-and-so crime or for so-and-so terror act, and he has been handed this sentence. So not much information was provided, and because of which a lot of human rights activists and observers did feel that this parallel judicial system was flawed due to no transparency.
All right, Taha Siddiqui reporting for us on the very latest as it comes to the military courts from Pakistan. Taha, thank you so much for that update. Well, moving on now to India, there's a report of yet another molestation case, the fourth such case in just over a week, again in the city of Bengaluru in southern India. Police say a woman was molested by two men while going to the gym on the 4th of January, just a few days back. The incident happened at Banaswadi. Police have registered a case and they are conducting the appropriate investigations. Now, this comes just hours after another video surfaced of yet another molestation situation in Bengaluru. A 23-year-old woman was allegedly molested in East Bengaluru's Nagvar Main Road on Monday morning. The woman was stalked by an unidentified man who allegedly molested her. She was also then attacked when she resisted and tried to fight back. Police have recovered the CCTV footage on your screen, the man following the woman, and now they have registered this case and are doing their due diligence.
The assurance that they'll actually take these complaints seriously, like the Home Minister himself said that it's because women are wearing Western dress. That's not why. It's not because of the dress. It's not because they chose to go out and party. It's because people feel safe in perpetuating these atrocities.
I know that my government is trying. The intent is good. And that is the reason even we had such harrowing incidents on the 31st. But we all know that there was so much of police. I myself, I was in Kormangla. There were a lot of police. There were 15,000 police who were deployed. All I'm saying is that it is the execution part somewhere where the government is lacking.
Well, people in Bangalore are simply shocked and are surprised. On Saturday, they formed a human chain and protested against the rising crimes against women in the city all over the last few days. The protesters, mainly youngsters, gathered outside the High Court of the southern Karnataka state. They demanded action against men who were held after a video showing them allegedly molesting a woman in the city on New Year's Eve. And since then, several other incidences have since surfaced. And the other big story we're tracking for you this hour, the United States is recovering from yet another mass shooting, this time at an airport in the state of Florida. Thousands of passengers were trapped and had to run to the tarmac. Investigators say a lone wolf gunman, formerly with the U.S. military, opened fire at Fort Lauderdale's International Airport Friday afternoon. It was around 1 o'clock in the afternoon where he shot and killed 5 people and then sent 8 others to the hospital. Now investigators are trying to figure out what led to the shooting. A 26-year-old Iraq war veteran, Esteban Santiago, is a man police say shot and killed innocent passengers at Fort Lauderdale International Airport on Friday. Santiago took a flight from Alaska to Florida. A Broward County commissioner says once he landed, Santiago went to baggage claim, picked up his luggage, then removed a checked-in handgun, and then went to the bathroom to load it. That's when he walked out and started firing until the bullets ran out. After that, he surrendered to police. Cell phone video posted to social media showed travelers treating victims next to the baggage carousel. Some victims were covered in blood, and dozens of others were taken to nearby hospitals with broken bones and bruises. The scene at the airport turned into chaos. Passengers were forced to flee for cover, some even walking on the tarmac for safety.
4 custom officers run around the corner, and it was really horrifying, like run, and like super traumatic, and a mass of people were behind them running.
The pilot said that we were probably in the most secure area, so that was good to know, but it also kind of added a little bit of like tense feeling, just because knowing that it was that serious out here.
We thought we'd get to the airport early to make sure we got all of our baggage through, and all we heard is screaming and then everybody ducking and running out.
Even the former White House press secretary, Ari Fleischer, was caught in the airport chaos. He tweeted, "I'm at the Fort Lauderdale airport. Shots have been fired. Everyone is running." Florida's governor says this is an act of evil.
The citizens of Florida will not tolerate senseless acts of evil. You just can't imagine how this could ever happen in a state like ours. Think of the innocent lives that are lost. We still, according to the Sheriff's Department, we have 5, as you know, we have 5 individuals that have lost their life. We still have people fighting for their life in our hospitals.
Santiago previously showed up at an FBI office in Anchorage after he behaved erratically. Santiago told agents that U.S. intelligence agencies were controlling his mind, and he was ordered to watch Islamic State videos. He served in the National Guard for nearly a decade in Puerto Rico and was also deployed to Iraq in 2010. While investigators try to piece together a motive, airport security, mental health, and gun control are all back in the spotlight. In the U.S., flying with firearms is legal as long as they are locked and checked in under TSA rules. While the FBI has not ruled out terrorism, Santiago will face federal charges in the shooting rampage as investigators continue to review his most recent travel history. Archit Seshadri, WION. Now, there have been a number of similar mass shootings across the United States, from the Aurora shootings to the one in Columbine several years ago. Let's take a look at some of the more recent deadly cases of gun violence in the United States. Last June, there was a shooting at a nightclub, the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, where 50 people were killed. Back on December the 2nd, 2015, a shooting took place at the Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino, California, killing 14 people. And on the 17th of June 2015, a shooting took place at the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, where Dylan Roof killed 9 people. All right, now shifting focus to South Asia, the Sri Lankan government's deal with China to manage the Hambantota port has drawn fresh protests and clashes between government supporters and villagers. Clashes erupted when Sri Lanka's Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was attending the opening ceremony for the industrial zone near the port city. According to reports, government supporters armed with clubs first attacked protesters organized by the opposition, to which protesters responded by throwing rocks. Police used water cannons to disperse the agitated crowd. Several people are believed to be hurt. China has invested more than $1 billion in the Hambantota port and signed a framework agreement for a 99-year lease with a company in which China will have 80% ownership. Shifting gears now to India, the 2-day National Office Bearers Meet of the BJP in the Indian capital adopted an economic resolution on Saturday defending the government's move on demonetization. The resolution hailed demonetization as historic, signaling the party's full support to the Prime Minister's decision ahead of the polls in UP and 4 other states. The party hailed the ban on high-value notes as an important step in the war against black money and corruption, as well as a tool to attack and combat terrorism.
It is the election promise that the BJP had given in 2014 Lok Sabha elections to completely remove counterfeit and fake currency, removing the lifeline which was supply of these kind of notes to the terror groups was also an objective.
Well, meanwhile, the Election Commission of India has sought a response from the central government on whether to postpone the budget in view of its assembly polls. The Election Commission has written a letter to the Cabinet Secretary asking for a response. The EC letter follows a joint petition by 11 opposition parties that the budget dates to be postponed as the poll code has now come into force. The budget is to be presented on the 1st of February, while elections to 5 states, including Uttar Pradesh, will be held from the 4th of Feb until March the 8th.
We hope that the Election Commission will prevail and they will advise the government not to go ahead with this budget. There will not be any constitutional problem. There can be a vote on account, and subsequently, after the results are out, there can be a regular budget. That is only in the fitness of things. That is what the government should do. So we want the government to listen to this.
You see, last time in 2012, when elections were being held to different states, at that time BJP, being in opposition, had requested the government, the then Finance Minister Shri Pranab Mukherjee ji, now the present president, and he had deferred the date for presentation of the budget. I think likewise this time, when Election Commission has asked the government, they should acknowledge that and set the old precedent forward and not break it, so that in future nobody misuses it.
Don't forget to watch our exclusive interview on WION with Harsimrat Kaur Badal, the Union Minister of Food Processing, right here on WION at 5:30, right after this newscast. Here to the new UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, alleging India's interference and terrorism in Pakistan. Pakistan wants the world body to restrain India from such activities. Pakistan's permanent representative to the United Nations, Maliha Lodhi, handed over the dossier to Guterres at a meeting on Friday. She also handed over a letter from the PM's advisor on foreign affairs, Sartaj Aziz, where he says that the arrest of India's raw agent from Balochistan and his confessional statement that admitted involvement in activities aimed at destabilizing Pakistan and to support terrorist elements vindicated Pakistan's long-standing position about India's involvement in such activities. Well, Pakistan's former army chief Raheel Sharif has now been appointed the chief of the Saudi-led Islamic Anti-Terror Alliance. The appointment of Sharif was confirmed by Defense Minister of Saudi Arabia on Friday. Sharif retired as the army chief in November last year and has been succeeded by General Qamar Javed Bajwa. All right, more controversy with presidential politics, this time the United States, where Russia's President Vladimir Putin personally ordered an influence campaign aimed to defeat the Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton. That's according to an unclassified U.S. intelligence report. Now, in a full assessment of its investigation of the Russian cyber attacks, U.S. intelligence officials say Putin directed the move to help Republican candidate Donald Trump win and discredit Clinton. Meanwhile, President-elect Donald Trump says the cyber hacking had no effect on the voting outcome in the election polls. Trump also says he would work to crack down the cyber attacks in the country and expressed his confidence in the intelligence agencies for their selfless service. Well, in an unprecedented move, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has ordered diplomats appointed by Obama across the world to leave their posts after Inauguration Day on the 20th of January, just a few weeks away. Trump's transition team has decided not to give any grace period to officials who normally leave their office after a replacement is found. Trump's transition team says the decision is not ill will and that the new administration just wants to make sure the appointment is made as a result of political donations and that they end on schedule. The move will risk leaving the U.S. without envoys in several key countries like Germany, Canada, and Britain for months. All right, next to West Asia, miffed over the UNSC's resolution against its settlement at West Bank and East Jerusalem, Israel has now decided to suspend a significant portion of its annual contribution to the UN this year to protest the move. The announcement made by Israel's UN mission on Friday stipulated that $6 million will now be halted out of a more than $40 million that is regularly allocated to anti-Israel bodies. This means that various programs under the UN for Palestinians will no longer be able to receive fundings. The move is the first in a series of steps being taken by Israel's government, all in a reaction to the recent Security Council resolution. Meanwhile, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thanked the U.S. Congress for voting to condemn the UN resolution against Israel's settlement in occupied Palestinian territories. Let's listen in.
After the outrageous anti-Israel resolution at the UN, the U.S. House of Representatives voted yesterday resoundingly to support Israel and reject this one-sided resolution. Democrats and Republicans alike know that the Western Wall isn't occupied territory. They voted to either repeal the resolution at the UN or change it, and that's exactly what we intend to do. I want to thank the U.S. House of Representatives, which reflects the tremendous support Israel enjoys among the American people. Thank you, America. Thank you, Congress.
All right, now to some tech news. Tech giant Apple has penalized its CEO, Tim Cook, with a 15% pay cut for its first ever sales slump in a 15-year period. Cook received about $9 million for 2016. That's down about $10 million from the year before. The company cited a downturn in Apple's revenue and operating profit as the main reason behind the pay cuts for Cook and other top executives. Apple's revenue dropped about 8% to $216 billion and profit to 16% from $60 billion. All right, now much more news on the other side. Stay with us right here on WION.